Hello! Welcome everyone to another episode of Minecrab. We are in Classic 0.0.23a_1. This version is famous for a specific bug. Before this version, gravel and sand have landed on top of water or lava as if they are solid blocks. Notch attempted to fix this, but introduced a new bug. Gravel and sand will now fall to the bottom of a liquid pool, but the gravel or sand swaps with the liquid, so the liquid tile will move upwards to where the sand or gravel was previously. This is actually the first time we have been able to get water above sea level. Water flows in from the world border, but it only flows to the side and downwards. So previously, the highest Y level we could have water at is 31. Now we can get water all the way up to the build limit. We are going to use this to do what every classic player has to do at least once: flood the world. Before I unleashed the Great Flood, I have recreated Noah's Ark. Inside here we have 2 of every mob. Well, the Steve mob is the only mob in this version. So we have 2 Steves in here, safe from the flood. Also, thanks to Mato's suggestion during a live stream when we transported the Steves up here, we also have 2 discontinued silent Steves. These guys were obtained in a previous episode, and unlike normal Steves, they don't make any sound when they move. Alright, it's time. It's time to unleash the flood. Here we go. Alright, the entire world is flooded now. The water lagged my world a lot, but after leaving and coming back, it runs smoothly again. The Steves are safe and dry in the Ark. And here is how the Menger sponge looks. So the sponges keep it dry, they hold the water at bay, except for the large holes in the Menger sponge. These holes are actually big enough to allow the water to flow inside here, and it creates this kind of cool pattern of floating large water channels inside of the Menger sponge. So it's pretty cool, but our entire world is flooded now, and there is no way I'm going to dry it all by hand. So I'm going to load a backup. For my actual world, I'm going to keep an encaged water block here at the build limit. As long as you have 1 water at the build limit, you can always pipe it anywhere lower or to the side, so we have access to water at any location in our world. This water above sea level becomes a discontinued feature in later versions. Another cool part about this water swap bug is that the water does not update after it is teleported upwards. This allows us to create floating water blocks without any sponges. Floating water created using sponges requires the sponges to remain in place. If you break the sponges, then the water will update. This floating water is unique because we can create it without any sponges nearby. However, you cannot get a second floating water block touching the first, or else the first one will get updated. I have used this to create some cool floating water patterns. Here I have a floating water spiral, and I can climb up it. It works as an elevator to get out of this hole. So I can climb up to the top. It goes all the way up to the build limit for fun. And you can see none of the water in the spiral is actually touching each other. It's only diagonal. And I can fall out of here. I also created this floating water checkerboard. And finally, I created this 3D checkerboard cube. So it looks like a huge chunk of floating water, but if I go in here, you can see there are gaps of air, and none of the water is actually touching each other. Also note that this intricate pattern is not possible using sponges at all. I'm going to save these floating water builds for later versions, where they also become discontinued, invalid water configurations. Another thing that the water swap bug allows us to do is get water touching a sponge. When the sand and water swap, the water doesn't check that it should be dry due to the sponge. And this works on all the faces of the sponge except the top face, because then the sand will just land on the sponge. I've used this to get some other patterns of water in the range of sponges, and put this next to our floating water. And this is also next to our floating sand from a previous episode. So we got a little collection going on here. For completeness, I want to mention that this update has also brought changes to the escape menu. We have new textures for the buttons. We also have this new options button. In options, we can toggle music or sound, invert the mouse, show FPS, change render distance, and change key bindings. The bound keys also means that by default, we can no longer use the arrow buttons to move, and cannot use the Windows button to jump. The Windows button was a terrible control anyway, because it brings up the Windows menu. We are done with the changelog. Now, what else are we going to do this episode? Unfortunately, I made a mistake. Next episode, we are updating to our first survival version. In episode 17, we prepared for survival mode. I spent many hours coating the world with dirt blocks, and then placed brown mushrooms on top. The idea was to save these brown mushrooms for the survival versions. In all the versions up till now, mushrooms require light, or else they will decay. But starting in the survival tests, mushrooms require dark, or else they will decay. That means that when I update my world, all the mushrooms will quickly decay away. This change I knew about and prepared for. I designed what I thought was a clever solution to this problem. I was planning to create a glass ceiling across the entire world. A monumental challenge without the shift button, but I was up to the task. I would put water sources above the glass ceiling, held by floating gravel. Right before I updated, I would update the floating gravel to release the water and create a water blanket that shaded the mushrooms across the whole world. A few mushrooms would decay before the water covered them, but I thought this would allow most mushrooms to survive the update. However, there's a problem that I only learned about after I placed the mushrooms. There's another change that was missing from the Minecraft Wiki's changelog, until I recently added it. The blocks that can support mushrooms also changed starting in the survival tests. Before the survival tests, mushrooms have to be on dirt or a grass block. Starting in the survival tests, mushrooms have to be on stone, cobblestone, or gravel. I didn't know about this change, and unlike the lighting problem, which I can quickly fix for all the mushrooms, I can't think of any way to quickly swap out all of the dirt with stone, cobblestone, or gravel. So unfortunately, I wasted a ton of my time. The large amount of brown mushrooms cannot be saved. I think that the layer of dirt will still be useful later on though. The only mushrooms that will survive the update are a few that I place right before updating, if we leave the game before they decay. We'll do that at the end of this episode. Luckily, brown mushroom items drop from pigs, so I will be able to obtain those renewably anyway. Since we'll lose all the brown mushrooms anyway, I'm going to flood my actual world, not a backup. I've gone ahead and blocked any spots I don't want to become flooded. For this flood, I am only flooding 2 blocks above ground level, unlike that great flood. In this version, the flood will cover up the mushrooms and kill them, since they won't have any light. Now, why am I flooding my world? It's actually to prevent mob spawns in the next version. Water or lava are the only 2 blocks that can stop mob spawns in that version. This will be a mess for later me to clean up, but sponges will help a lot. Blocking mob spawns on the surface will increase the efficiency of a mob farm I am creating in the next version. I've actually dug out the start of that mob farm. That's because I can instant mine in this version, so that made construction much faster than having to dig out the blocks. I will showcase this mob farm in the next episode though, so stay tuned. Right before I leave, I'm going to prepare mushrooms for the update. Here's me placing mushrooms before closing this version for the very last time. I'm mostly placing red mushrooms since brown mushrooms are renewable. I attempted this many times and I'm updating the one that has the most mushrooms survive. And most important is that the first mushrooms that I ever placed in this world are preserved. That's all for this episode. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video and subscribing. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.